What on earth is a zombie brand? We're going to answer that question today. But first, before we begin, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, give the show a like so we can continue producing more of this type of content. And we're going to go ahead and dig into it. I'm your host, Steve Reed, and this is Brand or Die. So the main message here is don't be a zombie brand, but what is a zombie brand? No, it's not a brand that is all about zombies, okay? These are brands that essentially take on the characteristics and act like zombies, which is not a good thing. It's not a cool thing. Some people think zombies are cool, and that's great for movies and whatnot, but it's not good to be a zombie brand. So the first thing that I want to put out there is that your brand begins to exist the first time you engage an audience, because the brand is not your logo. It's not your designs. It's not all the graphics. It's not all of that. Your brand is something very, very specific. And we're going to go with the definition here provided by Uli Applebaum. There's many great definitions. This is the one that I think is the best in my mind because it's extremely practical in how you can apply it. A brand is a sum of all of the associations consumers have about your offering. And it's the consumers have that I want you to focus on, because the brand exists in the hearts, the minds, the guts of your audience, which means the very first time there's an interaction, your brand begins to exist because people now have associations. That was good. That was bad. That was really cool. That was dumb. All of these things begin to exist. And that is the foundation and formulation of your brand. And just to make sure we're perfectly clear, there's a little 3-step process here. First, a consumer is engaged. Second, the consumer forms associations, both good or bad or indifferent, right? And number 3, voila, your brand is born. That's essentially how it happens. Now, some businesses thrive because of intentional strategic branding. Others are slowly and inevitably plagued with issues and become zombie brands, right? And I think we all know what a zombie is. Now, there are basically 8 symptoms of what I'm referring to as a zombie brand here. They are lifeless existence, lack of strategy, absence of personality, unconscious engagement, aimless targeting, repulsive effect, clumsy execution, and decaying relevance. And we're going to go into these one at a time. Let's go ahead and hit up the first one. Lifeless existence. What does that mean? Well, like zombies, zombie brands exist in a state of limbo, not fully alive or dead, with no premeditated sense of purpose and direction. And honestly, there's a lot of brands that exist this way today, and I encounter them all the time. And it's kind of interesting because they keep doing the same thing over and over again. And they're not really making any changes. They're just kind of expecting that success will come. And so they're in this not fully alive or dead state because there's no premeditated sense of purpose and direction, at least not a good one, right? So if your brand is plagued by this or any of these that we're going to be covering today, you are either highly at risk of being a zombie brand or well on your way to becoming one. And there's different states of zombification, right? There's the initial bite when you start showing symptoms. Then, your flesh starts to crack and the veins appear. And then you just start rotting. And then you're just like a head or a hand crawling across the ground. And so we don't want to be any of those. We want to be a good, healthy, thriving brand. We do not want to be a zombie brand. So let's go ahead, check out number 2, lack of strategy. Zombie brands wander around aimlessly without a coherent plan or strategic approach. They stumble around, randomly trying different tactics without a well-defined objective. When a plan isn't present, people just try things and they throw everything at the wall. And while that may seem like a good idea, it can actually be very harmful and devastating to your brand. You see different people going onto social media and they will be posting something about their business. Then they look at what other people are doing and say, oh, I want to do that. They want to copy their favorite person that they follow that has nothing to do with their brand. And they immediately start to want to be like them and start doing the things that they're doing but it's a huge mismatch between the customer and what they want and what the owner of the business wants. And it can be catastrophic and devastating. It could really turn people off. And this stumbling around, randomly trying different tactics, it's not generally a good idea. Now it's fine to experiment and to validate your assumptions and do things like that. But if you're already setting out in your business and you're spending money and you're producing things and putting things out there, there should be a strategy behind why you're doing the things that you're doing, not just shooting from the hip. There's always a time for A/B testing and things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. This is just plain old lack of strategy, either because a business owner does not know what they're doing, they don't care to go about things the right way, and it ends up causing problems. Number 3, absence of personality. Zombie brands have no distinctive and compelling personality. They fail to connect with their target audience on an emotional level, and they struggle with creating a memorable brand identity. Again, I see this a lot. You have a lot of businesses that are really trying to connect with an audience, and they're doing it with such a dry and, I don't want to say like corporate-y kind of feel. It's kind of like the Ben Stein voice of how you're presenting yourself, which I think in many cases, Ben Stein has a much more compelling personality, even with his monotone voice, than a lot of what I've seen out there. So we definitely want to create a personality. There's steps and there's ways that we can do that through the branding process. 4, unconscious engagement. Just as zombies are devoid of consciousness, zombie brands fail to listen and understand their customers' needs and desires, resulting in poor, meaningful engagement. So again, if there's no consciousness there, if you're just wandering around like a zombie saying, customers, purchase, buy, sell, blah, 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 and you're just trying to go about the business end of things, and you're not really trying to understand what your audience wants and how to fulfill those desires with your solution, like deeply understanding their problem and the way that you're solving the problem, you could be essentially punching the client in the face every single time you're interacting with them, right? We had this one fake product that we would talk about, and the model of car we imagined was called the Honda Nut Kick. And basically, as you were driving, it would just kick you repeatedly in the groin. And how sometimes products will do that. And it's like, man, it would certainly be great if I wasn't getting kicked in the groin repeatedly by this car, but otherwise it's a great car, It's so, sometimes we do that as companies and businesses and with the products that we're selling. We are really doing horrific things to our customers, but they're buying anyway because they want this product or service so bad. But at some point, they just can't take the pain anymore. So we have to listen to the customers. We got to understand what they want. And if there's any part of that cycle where there is friction or discomfort or anything in there, we want to iron those things out so it's a fluid experience each and every time. And to do that, we have to start acting more conscious in how we react to our customers and what we choose to do once we have a plan in place. Number 5, aimless targeting. Zombie brands have no defined target audience. They aggressively pursue anyone in sight without focus and never resonate with a specific customer segment. And this one just kind of drives me nuts is when businesses, they just say, oh, my customer is everybody. Everyone's my potential customer. And yes, anyone can come into your store and purchase your product, but depending on what it is, and this goes, I think, for any product out there, there's going to be a certain segment of people that are going to buy from you. And within those segments, there are people that are perfect for what you are advertising for, right? There is a perfect customer, the type of customer you could have 1 million of them and you would just be happy every single day. Those are the ones that you want to pursue. You don't want to be a mindless zombie just going brains, sales, and just going out and trying to go after everyone. Because if you're doing that, people just think you're shooting from the hip, going all over the place. They're like, well, I don't know if this is 100% for me or not. It's not really clear. And that type of lack of clarity can be a problem. So, number 6, repulsive effect. What is the repulsive effect? Well, Instead of attracting customers, zombie brands often repel them. We've talked about this a little bit. Their lack of personality, purpose, and relevance makes it difficult for customers to connect with or trust them. So this is kind of a compounding effect. When several of these things are in play, it creates an actual repulsive effect. You are doing the opposite of what you're hoping to achieve with your marketing and your advertising. You are essentially marketing advertising against yourself by the way that you are doing things, because there is no strategy there. So it actually is counterproductive. You're having the opposite effect of what you want to have. That's worse than having no effect. Is having a negative effect. We don't want to do that. And so again, putting a proper strategy in place can help prevent this. Clumsy execution. Number 7. Like stumbling zombies, zombie brands exhibit clumsy execution in their actions and initiatives. They lack finesse and often make mistakes or poor decisions, damaging their reputation. Oh man, I think there could be a long list of businesses that do these types of things and have done these types of things. And so it starts to get very complicated. But at the end of the day, you have consumers that are buying from you because they like your products. But when purchasing those products also coincides with certain messages that they either disagree with or are too repetitive, or that just not jiving with them, you get this damage to the reputation that could be very difficult to recover from. I mean, some of the boycotts happening with Bud Light and even Target, I think are the two biggest ones right now, and what they're facing. Man, this has been really interesting to watch from a branding perspective. And it makes me wonder, what they're thinking. One of the biggest problems with these large brands appeal to a wide audience, right? Lots of people go to Target. Lots of people consume Bud Light. Now, when you go and you take a very niche stand on something that isn't going to appeal to the majority of customers, you're going to run into problems. We live in a world today where messages can travel very quickly. Brands can be damaged very fast. So you want to be very careful about these things. Stick to what your brand strategy is and pursue that. And there may be times when you need to adjust or you want to go after other segments. But man, you got to be very, very careful with it. I mean, even the big guys and the guys with a lot of money at their disposal can exhibit clumsy execution. So that is a big warning. So if you do not have expensive people on your staff helping to make some of these decisions, the odds that you're going to step into problems like this could be significantly greater. So keep that in mind. All right. The last point we're going to make is decaying relevance. And decaying relevance is summed up this way. Like decaying zombies, zombie brands experience relevance decay over time. They fail to adapt to changing market dynamics, becoming outdated and fading away in the eyes of their audience. And going back to the last point, this may be what certain brands are trying to avoid, is this decaying relevance. They want to be up to date. They want to be trendy. They want to go along with whatever seems to be popular at the time. But again, there are risks to this. Staying up to date with things is something you got to be very careful about. You definitely don't want to decay and become irrelevant, but you also don't want to push too hard, too fast to be completely on trend if you end up tripping over your target audience in the meantime. So you got to be very careful with that. You want to stay relevant, but you want to do it the right way. And so there's lots of ways you can do this. The biggest and most important way is constantly having your finger on the pulse of your target audience. You want to be interviewing them frequently and finding out who is the core of your customer base. What do they believe in? What are their ideals? What are their values? What values do you share with them? And really build upon those things. And that may shift over time. You may notice that all of a sudden you no longer have these types of customers, and now you're starting to have these types of customers. And you may want to shift your messaging slightly to appeal more to them. Maybe do a brand update, a little shift, or you might even need a total rebrand at that point if the change is significant enough to warrant something like that. And so those are all different strategies that we could spend hours and hours talking about, but we're just not going to do that. So can zombie brands be cured? That is the question. Can we fix these things? The answer is yes, absolutely. We can repair zombie brands. There are ways that we can go about it and do it. And the way we do it is first by establishing a brand architecture. Now, there's 4 different types of brand architectures. We won't get into all that. But basically, a brand architecture, it provides a framework that helps businesses effectively manage their brand portfolio and communicate their value proposition to customers. It ensures consistency, clarity, and synergy across all brand touchpoints, such as websites, marketing materials, product packaging, and more. The brand architecture is extremely important. And as I demonstrate with every one of my customers who we go through the process of building a brand architecture, I show them how this single document with all of the assets that are created, and it usually includes stylescape design and logo design, which actually is third in the process. It's brand architecture first, stylescape, and then logo design. There's a reason why we do that. We can get into that in perhaps another video. But from the architecture, you can go forth and create websites. You can create social media strategies and content. You can create the building blocks of a great marketing plan or advertising campaign. It is absolutely amazing what you can do with a well-designed brand architecture. And I have a specific way that I do it based off of years and years and years of working with clients to give them exactly the types of things that they need. My mission and goal is to help cure zombie brands or prevent any kind of brand zombification from occurring. The brand architecture, in opposition to the symptoms that we've seen before, the brand architecture creates purposeful existence, clear strategy, magnetic personality, active engagement, precision targeting. There's an attractive effect, not a repulsive effect, consistent execution, and thriving relevance. When all of these things are in place, we can essentially cure brand zombification and create thriving brands that actually connect with their audiences and support a rich and flourishing business. So that's it for today. We've covered all of the aspects of what it means to have a zombie brand and some tips and strategies on how we can reverse those effects. Throughout this entire channel, we're touching on all these different aspects of branding. There's a lot to learn. It takes years and years to learn, and even more years and years to perfect out in the field with real clients, with real customers. And so if you are in need of any kind of help with your zombie brand, you can go ahead and reach out to me. If you'd like to do a quick call just to see if we're a good fit and some of the issues that you're having, just go to brand.vector.com and book a time on my calendar, and we can have a quick 15-minute call and see if there's anything that I could do to help you and if we'd be a great fit working together. Well, that is today's show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed learning about zombie brands. You're going to hear more and more about this subject and this type of way of framing it moving forward. But I appreciate you listening. Be sure to give the show a like if you enjoyed the content. And again, don't forget to subscribe because there's a lot more great stuff coming here on Brand or Die. I'm Steve Reed, and I'll see you next time.